Hello, everyone. And today we actually have a special double whammy of the coffee chat. Prior to Elizabeth Johnston here, you may have noticed that I was on with Kimberly. And so, yes, today is a special day. I decided, why not? Let's have two little coffee chats. I'm super excited to have Elizabeth Johnston here. And I'm Charlene Tessier. And she is an amazing story coach. I love story. I have been in love with story since I was a little child. And story is something that is just I don't know, really near to me. But having story in my business is really a struggle. And yeah. So Elizabeth, how's it going today?
Oh, I'm doing really well. And I tuned into your interview with Kimberly, and I found it so interesting, how she defined all those terms and, what content writing versus copywriting was. And it sounds like an awesome interview and an event that she's going to be having as well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I know yours is around copywriting in a way, but in a very different way. And story is something that we all know, all grew up with, but incorporating it into our business is something that many entrepreneurs struggle with. Using their personal story, talking about their personal story in their business. I actually struggle with that. I'm very personal, and it's very difficult for me to do that. And I wonder why you think it is so hard for entrepreneurs to share their personal story in the business.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm thinking really that it comes down to one thing, and that's fear, because they are so focused on making their business grow and be a success because they got bills to pay and they've got kids clothes to buy, and they've got all of these responsibility and car payments, and everything depends on them bringing in clients. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs think, I can't be bothered with story, that's like not part of the business plan, so we just got to focus in on bringing in revenue. And a few years ago, I actually did a business plan, and it was not a natural activity for me, because I'm a very artsy, creative person, and thinking that way just was completely foreign to me, and it was actually a very painful process. But after I finished it, I realized, oh my goodness, all I'm doing in here is telling a story. That's really what you're even doing in a business plan, is like creating a story so that people reading it can see the through line, the story arc of your business. And it was when I realized that, then I revamped it, and it read so much better. And so I think that, like, but basically it comes down to fear. And also fear that if they share their stories, their personal stories, because a lot of entrepreneurs are fine with sharing other people's personal stories that they've helped, right? So those are testimonials, but they're not as comfortable in sharing their own stories of transformation. And yet that's what's going to connect with the people that you're trying to draw to you. Is if you are vulnerable, if you show them that, oh, I've been where you've been, I understand you, I get you. But entrepreneurs are afraid that if they reveal that, behind the curtain, all those, like, jumble of like dirty laundry and messy, things in there, that the esteem that they feel that they hold in front of people is going to disappear. But it's actually the opposite. Is that when you get vulnerable, when you get real, then people get you. And I'm not saying like, oh, just break down in tears and like sobbing on the floor and that kind of like vulnerability. I'm talking about actually owning the fact that you have worked long and hard to get to where you are, and there have been ups and downs along the road, but you have found your way to success, such as it is, right? It's like wherever you are, you're teaching that or helping other people to do that. And it was a journey for you to get there. And so people want to know not just like what your personal story is because they're curious. It's like, no, they want to know that you actually understand the process that you're taking them through.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess it is also a little bit like, we see these very highly successful entrepreneurs and we just see them on this pedestal of perfection, right? Not really as humans. And we sort of somewhat strive to that, and so we don't want to show that, hey, we've done a launch and it's failed, or we've
Yeah.
tried to write our story or our copy or whatever and it failed epically, and we don't really want to admit that publicly. We'll admit that maybe privately to ourselves, but being that
Yeah.
publicly is very, very, very hard, I think. And yeah, it's something that and I struggle with as well. It's finding those right moments to share, and but I agree.
But you
People,
found the right moment. You found a perfect moment to share in the interview with Kimberly when you said like about funnels, that you've done so many funnels, and a lot of them have flopped. But through that trial and error process, you've come up with a system now, and or at least what not to do, right? So you've got this ability, and that's the iterative process. That's another thing that it's really underrated in the entrepreneurial world, this idea of the iterative process, because you try one thing, it's like, oh, that didn't work out the way I thought it did, so I'm going to try this other thing. But you take the knowledge of the flop with you, right? And you're not going to repeat it again in the next iteration. And like actually Samuel Beckett, the playwright, he has this quote: fail, fail again, fail better. And I love that quote because it gives you permission to try and to experiment. But so many people, when I share that with them, they go, "Oh my goodness, failure, run away!" But failure is your friend because it's going to help you get to where you want to go.
and that is a really lovely quote. I do love that, actually. And so, with story in our business, how can we really leverage that to build a deeper connection with our audience and build relationships? And maybe, I don't know if you have a tip or two about how we can start to use that in our business and where it's appropriate or when it's appropriate. That's also a thing I kind of wonder about.
Yeah, yeah, those are great questions. And so basically, what I'm talking about when I say use personal story in your business, it's using stories that show that you've gone from one state to the next, right? And that you've come out better. And so, like let's say you're a coach for women who have gone through divorce. Like you can imagine that they could spend a lot of times talking, and telling their stories of all the horrible things that their partner did to them. But what I ask people to do when they're writing about, something personal like that is that, yeah, it was horrible, but how are you better now that you've gone through that experience? What are your lessons? What have you learned? Right. And so when you focus on what have I learned and how am I better, or how has this experience how does that experience allow me to help my clients, right? Then all of a sudden you're transforming what story can do in your business, right? So it isn't about wallowing in the past or beating yourself up. It's like, yeah, stuff happens. How did I get through that? And that's inspiring for people when they can see a beginning, middle, and end. It's like, oh, this is how I was before my divorce. Then I had a divorce, and now look at me, right? Like, look at what I'm able to do and accomplish. And which doesn't mean to say that there isn't sadness there, of course, right? But you've
Mhm.
achieved stuff, and you've gone so far, and you've got to a certain place. And so that's one of the tips that I think is very important, is that when you think about story, is like, what's the lesson in it? What's the takeaway? How am I better now? And frame the story around that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely think about it that way when I try to write my next story, although I don't write very many. I'm very shy, like I said.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Elizabeth has her 3-day event also coming up at a different time. It's going to be March 3rd to the 5th. And I'll let you share a bit about what's going to be, what you're going to learn there and what you'll be able to get out of it after 3 days.
Yeah, so I really want to empower people to use more personal story in their business, and so I put together this 3-day event to help people do that. And so the first order of business is getting comfortable with sharing your stories. Actually, no, the first order of business will be to just unearth some of those stories, because a lot of people think like, oh yeah, I do have a story, but A, it's not relevant to my business, or I do have a story that's relevant to my business, but I'm too shy to share it, or it's not nobody's business, or all those other things, right? So, or the third thing is that I don't have any stories. Nothing interesting has
Yeah,
ever happened to me.
that's what
It's
I was
got,
thinking.
you know, so so the first order of business is going to take people through a series of very short writing exercises to start unearthing some of those stories that are in there, and then sharing them. So that's kind of like the next phase is like unearthing some of them, and then in a safe environment where there's no judgment, to share some of your stories. And of course, like, these aren't necessarily like complete, beginning, middle, and end stories. They're just like starting to, unearth them and share them and get comfortable with that. And then I'm also going to talk about how you could use these stories in your business, and how to tweak them, and find a home in different places in your business. Like, for instance, um, and it's called tell your stories. That's, I didn't say tell your story, because we have more than one, right? So it's plural, tell your stories. And that's because we need to have as many stories at our fingertips as we can, because when we're in a networking event, let's say we've gone to JVology Live and we're in breakout rooms talking to people, and we've got extra time, after we do our JV pitch, and then we can actually start, talking a little bit amongst ourselves, and then you hear something from somebody, and you realize like, oh, they would resonate with this story that I have in my portfolio, in my head here. And then another person, oh, they would resonate with this story. And so it's so important to have a range of stories, because people are all different. And, if you have one story that you just toss out the same, to every person that you meet, you're not going to reach as many people as you could if you actually were listening to what they were saying, and then matched what you have in your um, arsenal of experience, to them. And so that's the other aspect that we'll explore is like, why it's important to have multiple stories, and not just the story, and also talking about how you can integrate it into your business to attract clients, because when you are attracting clients through your story, they already like you. And it's almost like, I don't even know what she's selling, but I really, resonate with what she shared with me, and I want to learn more from her, So that opens up the door to a lot more possibilities than you trying to, copyright your way into their heart. Like, you can't do that, right? It's through story that you're going to, touch them, and make a difference, because that's what people are after. It doesn't matter what kind of product that they're buying. What they're looking for is a transformation in their life, but transformation comes through story and engagement. And so we're also going to talk about like how to create business relationships through story as well. So it's not just your clients, but also potential JV partners, as well.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful. And I agree. It's really amazing how powerful it can be, and just using the right, having that arsenal of story and using the right one to get that connection and to
Yeah.
build that relationship. And you're right, when people often resonate to that person and purchase whatever that they're offering, it's because of some connection that they feel with them, some
Yeah.
relationship, and it's usually through the story that, oh, that happened to me, or I felt like that. And not sharing that actually does make it harder to build that relationship and connection. And so that's really exciting and amazing, and I'm so happy that you have your event going. And I will put the in the comments, I will put the link for Elizabeth's upcoming event. And if you have any question about storytelling, anything like that, ask them in the comments, and I'll let Elizabeth know that she's got questions to answer. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for this conversation. It was great.
Yeah, thank you for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you all next time.